This is when I was like 7, 8, 9.
Oh, so about 87 years ago.
Yeah, roughly about that, yeah. Definitely, yeah. It's just that I fall into certain categories that they say this is autism, but really they're really all fumbling in the dark anyway.
Particularly good.
It's a great album. This like
By a crew called Them.
I got it in a charity shop for 50 pence. It was the road that you're travelling on. You kind of get to a point where like, oh, that wasn't it. Oh, hang on, change it up a bit slightly. Oh no, that's not it. And then you like nailed it. You know what I mean? And then you get it, and then once you've got that down, and then people hear that, they don't know that, maybe they don't all know about the puzzle.
Yes, people, how we doing? Welcome back to a brand new episode of Yackaholics. Today's guest has been part of the hip-hop scene for many years now. He is a serial crate digger. He's been searching for vinyl for a long time. He searches out rare gems, he samples those pieces of vinyl. He makes banging hip-hop because he's a producer as well. He's also a superb rapper, probably one of the best lyricists in the UK. His skill level is ridiculous. Add to this, he recently got a diagnosis for autism, which relates to his thinking about the way he approaches hip-hop. He's a very interesting guy. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Ken Masters. Yes, people, how we doing? Welcome back to a brand new episode of Yackaholics. Today, I have my guest, Ken Masters. Ken Masters is a crate digging activist, rapper, producer, and somebody who's in the last few years has had an autism diagnosis as well. So he's got some story to tell. So we're going to get right into it. How you doing, Ken?
I'm all right.
Yeah, good?
Yeah.
Good.
Happy to have you.
Comfy, yeah. You're happy to have me at your house where we're doing the Yackaholics.
You're always welcome here.
From your kingdom today.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, pretty complex story, really, I think. So,
is it?
Well, I think so, yeah. I think so. So, the first thing that I want to get into is how your parents how did you become this person in the first place? Where was you living when you discovered hip hop?
All right, because so we're going all the way back then. I was like 10 years old when I got into hip hop, but it was not as as I know it now as a culture with so much responsibility and kind of there's a real depth to the culture, and obviously most of us when we got into it back then and that would have been late 83, I think I'm going to say it was. I was, kind of just attracted to the art forms. Initially, I was doing robotics anyway, and then kind of saw popping.
So was it like aesthetically that you liked it, the way that it just looked on a simple level? Yeah. Like the graffiti and the dancing and
the sound and the look, it was all like those things were really striking, which was the kind of the selling point of anything affiliated to hip hop culture at that time, as it just sounded so innovative and different
than anything else.
Little did we know that it would just influence everything after, and the methods of practice would be the mainstay in all kind of forms of popular culture. Yeah. So my parents, I come from quite a stable family background, and both my parents are into music. My mum is a singer, predominantly loves singing jazz, sings a lot of the standards.
So did you always have like jazz records hanging about?
Well, actually, I had all sorts of records. Had some kind of, I'm trying to think what I had, because my dad is into like bluegrass and folk music as well.
Right.
So there'd be a lot of Bob Dylan, and my dad also liked jazz, but more like kind of beat kind of jazz, like 60s. Yeah. beat stuff. So he had a lot of that.
Is that like a bit more swingy, like a bit?
It's kind of swing, but it's kind of like it was kind of modern take on it. So,
Right.
but very drum heavy as well. There's a lot
Yeah.
of like good drum samples and stuff, which would come later. But
Yeah.
yeah, he had a lot of like actually 2 records that he had in his possession, which really influenced me later on, were modern jazz quartet records. Milt Jackson's like one of my favorite jazz musicians, vibraphone player. He did the version of Django that I'm pretty sure that Pete Rock used for the remix of Can't Stop the Prophet
Yeah.
by J. Rue. If it wasn't that version, it was definitely Django that was sampled, but I'm pretty sure it was the Milt Jackson version. So yeah, he had some jazz and stuff like that. So I grew up around music. My mum was a singer. My dad actually played a bit of guitar and a bit of banjo. And used to go like the year in Whitley Bay where you're staying, the lovely Whitley Bay, which you love so much. And yeah,
I do. I'm a huge fan of Whitley Bay and Newcastle. Very close to my heart.
Well, back then in Whitley Bay, we used to have a thing. There's a thing called a Panama Dip. And in the Panama Dip, there's like an amphitheatre sort of thing.
Okay.
Which doesn't get used for anything these days, which is a travesty. But back then, they used to have events on there. And there used to be this one yearly event called the Folk Moot, which was international folk musicians used to come and perform. Like there was music and dance. At this big central stage, it was like a big dance floor. And then seats all the way around. And musicians and dancers from around the world would come and kind of perform on it. I remember that being like really I was really into that. This is when I was like 7, 8, 9.
Wow. So about 87 years ago.
Yeah, roughly about that, yeah. Definitely, yeah. Yeah. Cheers, mate.
I joke.
He's not far off. But yeah, so that was really interesting to have that there. There was a lot of like kind of culture from outside of this country coming to the northeast, which was, looking back, was really kind of influential, I think. When I got into hip hop, I guess my thirst for kind of seeing things from outside of the bubble that I was in was probably a really quickly became a draw.
Introduced you to more of a worldly view.
Yeah, so like those hooks that were like the visuals and the audio that like I was really attracted to became like versions of stories and opinions and viewpoints from somewhere else in the world that was totally alien to me.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you can see commonalities on the way that people kind of viewed things, and that I guess like in human existence, we all kind of tend to have similar reactions to things. Not all the time, but like, when I kind of got to know the story of hip hop and what was happening in the Bronx and the surrounding boroughs at the time, like I kind of thought, I don't know how I would cope in that situation, but I think that story of the struggle galvanizing the community and it being that drew people together, and it wasn't the authorities that came in and cleaned up the community.
The people did it themselves.
Was the people.
Yeah.
And that's a real powerful thing, because it shows you that like, that it doesn't matter what politicians are doing, how much they're stiffing us and left, right and centre and taking backhanders and, all that kind of stuff.
Really, we have the power.
There is a power within us to change.
How was your like, because I haven't spoke much to your mum, really. I've met her a few times. I spoke more to your dad, Tim, and he seems like a very like...
Hi Tim, hi Brenda.
Like a worldly wise person. You know what I mean? He's like got a good outlook on life, but he also has knowledge and stuff. What was you? Because you're quite like activist, politically minded and stuff. And was your mum and dad like that?
Not so much. No. Like, yeah, you would agree with me. I think that it wasn't so much like that. Although my dad actually was heavily into Bob Dylan, so I guess he had that.
Yeah.
And like, I guess maybe that might be a bit of a conflict for him, because like really being attracted to artists who were kind of really searching for the truth and voicing it. but also growing up in a generation that worshipped Winston Churchill, or like held the royal family up on a pedestal, or had certain views that, like, that at that time the British Empire was this mighty force, and it was something to be proud of. And yeah, so we should talk about pride, because I think that's a really interesting thing that I've got a realization about pride recently. Is because I've always kind of struggled with pride in my nation. I've always struggled with it.
Because of our history.
Well, yes, because of history. But what I'd kind of realised when I was looking at other countries who were standing up with a national anthem, is first I realised that actually we've got a really pompous national anthem, and I kind of put it down to that base level that we're just a bit pompous, really. But then knowing in the background that, like, actually we've got a really dodgy history, and like that, when you look at the centuries old kind of racial construct that, like, comes from the colonial kind of the colonial grip that then used that to enslave people and instill some sort of false superiority. Like, that kind of made us think that, like, so that's nothing to be proud in, but people still have pride. But what I've realised with, like, the reason that I struggle with it is because I feel like resistance is a reason to be proud. And I can't think of a time in recent history where our country has to resist against tyranny, that it has to, like, been in a struggle against tyranny. I see people on picket lines, like, if the miners strike, I guess you would have a sense of pride for standing up for your rights. And I think that's a really true source of pride for me. So then I was thinking that, like, so countries that can easily have a sense of pride have just went through so much struggle, and, like, I understand it. I identify with that, and I understand now why it is I don't identify with British pride or English pride, because I don't think we've got that much to be proud of.
No, I agree. You can be proud of it in the way of, like, things like the way that it looks in certain places. There's some beautiful places in the UK, and and there is a lot of good people in the UK as well.
Absolutely.
But yeah, when you're talking about up there and what people up there have done to ourselves and to other countries, you're right, there's not that much to be proud of. And I think, like, most everyday folk who have an awareness of that will feel the same, unless they've been blinded by some lie. Yeah, which happens, doesn't it? There's a lot of people who
does. Yeah, people believe in the be all you can be and you can get all you can have. It's like that. This is the fairest society that we're going to have. It's like, but I think that there is one of my favourite sayings that I've come across recently is resistance is fertile.
Fertile.
It's like, nice. Yeah, it's a beautiful phrase. And that's it. Like you can be one of those people that thinks, what's the point? And you can be in a circle of people and you can influence them to think, what's the point? And just go along with it. But equally, and I think more powerfully, you can be someone who goes, no, there's a definite point in resisting and kind of questioning. And I think if you can, I think that is infectious,
Yeah.
So
it's about where people are in life, isn't it? Like themselves, and how much they can put forward into that. Because I know for me, I feel strongly about things, but the capacity to act on them is sometimes high and it's sometimes low. So the way I address it a lot of time is in my lyrics. I write a lot about the world and stuff like that, and try and put messages of positivity out there and try and raise awareness of things. I've done quite a few tracks on that. And then other times I feel like getting out and doing something about it, and then, like, physically, and then other times I just don't have the capacity in myself.
I think it's about balance, isn't it? And I think that it's really hard to strike a balance. And for me, I'm like, the my default position is it'll never be enough. I'll never be able to do enough because there's always something more I can do, but I must do something.
So where's that like, because ultimately that person you are is a very caring person that gives a shit about what's going on in the world, and more specifically is cares about people and people being okay and fine and happy. Where does that come from in the first place? Do you think that's from because you felt what it feels like to be in a loving home, or was it that, and as well as that you saw things that just affected you because there was just looked like awful and suffering?
I think it's a collection of things. I think that like the love and home thing, I think, is definitely a part of it. It's instilled a sense of morality in me that like really wants to kind of make sure there's an equity amongst us all, like there is in my family. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I really think that the term family does extend beyond flesh and blood, doesn't it? At the end of the day. So like, I mean, we're brothers. So like, there's that sense of importance that I definitely maybe have been influenced. I've definitely been influenced from my family setup, but also I think like hip hop. I think traveling through, what is it, like however many years of, I mean, I'm 51 years old. I'm not 87 or whatever he said. Like, well, but I am 51, and like I'm as old as hip hop. Allegedly, I'm not saying that is definitely the birthday of hip hop. People like to pinpoint things, and put them in boxes and stuff. But there or thereabouts, and when I discovered hip hop, it definitely gave me a sense of purpose. But I'm not going to sit here and say that I knew exactly what it was about from the offset. And I think I'm always learning, and to the point of where like I feel like I'm still learning now, but definitely like there's been a gradual realization that I'm a white male that has immersed himself in black culture, and
yeah, me too.
so there is a sense of responsibility that I feel, to not appropriate it, to appreciate it and respect it, and check myself every step of the way to make sure that I'm not just taking from it, that I'm contributing to it as well.
Of course, yeah. Of course.
And I think that's a point that a lot of people miss, because obviously in performance there's a lot of ego involved. So people just want to know what they can get for themselves.
Yeah.
How many likes, shares, sales they can get, how many gigs they can get, how much notoriety, how famous can they be. But for me, that was never what it was about. I might have seen that at some point, thought, yeah, that people are making it big and they're superstars, but like, for me, gradually I've come to the realization that it's about much more than that. It's about community, and it's about a sense of responsibility to collectively collaborate on something that's going to benefit everyone, and make sure that you're putting back in.
Yeah, yeah.
And actually, outside of hip hop as well, there's the white man sort of thing that I'm going to also mention, is that I've got a sense of guilt in me, and I think that like that I've been questioned on that many times before when I've talked about white privilege and the sense of guilt, and people have said, well, why should I feel guilty and stuff, and all that kind of stuff. But like, actually, if I take ownership of that guilt and then say, well, what am I going to do about it? Then it is a very powerful tool to kind of know, and it's a big thing to look at, like, your history and everything that you have inherited is influenced by oppression, and that if things were different, you may not be in the position you're in because of a certain state of play, an institutionalized kind of racist ideology that puts us on different tiers. I wholeheartedly believe that, and I think that, like, if I take ownership of the fact that I do have a little baggage of guilt to carry around with me, I'm not going to deny that. I'm going to, I'm going to ask myself, well, what do I do? How do I put back in and make sure that I'm contributing?
I think that's always been drilled into me that, you don't just take from hip hop. I've been lucky in the sense that I've been surrounded by real hip hop heads, underground heads that have looked into, its origins and stuff like that. And then when I went to university as well, I did my dissertation on how hip hop can influence youth work, which was suggested to me by the head of the year. I said I was going to do it about something community related on a very boring level, and she's like, "Lee, you're a hip hop head. There's a story there." But then when I was writing my dissertation, I had to do a big part of that. We're looking at the history of hip hop and starting to read like Hip Hop Don't Stop and loads of different hip hop books history, and then learning about the oppression and what they had to overcome and how they did that and how gang culture came into it, and like the Rubble Kings documentary is a good example of that.
Great
and
documentary,
and Rubble Kings were out then, by the way, but I read about all that stuff. And just like you say, you suddenly realise that you can't just take from this thing, you have to put back into it, which is like why I did the Evo documentary and other and my podcast that I've done and stuff like that with Evo and the people I've talked to and met. And yeah, it's absolutely right. You can't just appropriate it and just.
It's one of the most important things, isn't it? Like
it most definitely is. There's a way to do it respectfully, and with a sensitivity towards those people that went through what they went through.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm totally on board with that.
It's a great book, that Jeff Chang's Can't Stop Won't Stop. It's
I borrowed it off DJ Woody, and then I give it him back, and then he accused me of not giving it him back. But I did. I know I did.
You won't stop stealing, can you?
Woody's got a great library. He's got a great library of like hip hop books, from the classics, the Subway Art and all that, to just like Mod 2 books, and like is really.
I've got a few good ones upstairs as well. Like I love all that literature. And actually, I grew up. I didn't mention that my dad is a graphic designer, and I grew up around lettering quite a lot.
Yeah, he's a calligrapher as well, isn't he?
He got his calligraphy degree about 10 years ago. So like later in his life, he started off as a sign writer and then became a graphic designer. And I always grew up around. He had his own business, self-employed. And he had a thing called letter set, and some people might know what that is. Many people might not know, but it's actually transfer sheets of the alphabet. You get multiple ones of each letter, and every set would be a certain font. And this is how they used to do.
I remember it. Yeah.
This is how they used to do paste up in the days. Like
is this the transfer pages. Ones where
you roll them on. So like it's not like Photoshop. You just type it in, there it is on the page. You would have to like meticulously like draw lines, get your letters out, and so. I used to play around with that, and I used to get like 2 different sets. Like someone would be like sans, someone would be like serif, and I would like put them like them together, so you'd have a new letter form and stuff. And this is when I'd kind of discovered graffiti and stuff. And my dad was like using them. He had like those sheets, and I was kind of like also playing around with them to kind of play with the letter forms and that. So that totally influenced me as well.
Yeah, so playing with letter forms before kind of like getting in, that's really interesting. Yeah.
And my dad's got a real kind of deep respect for graffiti now. He didn't understand it when I was young. He didn't really understand what it was about, but he definitely sees the artistry in it now and fully respects that.
The craft.
Yeah, the craft of it.
Yeah. So we're just drawing together. So we're starting to get this picture of you now as a person who's come from a creative family and a loving family, and then you've got into hip hop and you've started to learn about its history and the suffering that's happened, and that's like pulled on them strings of emotion that are within you, and you're starting to become this guy now, and then you move into like rapping and production and stuff. So when you got into rapping, was it kind of about, was there a need to get certain messages out, or was it just fun at the beginning, just kind of like playing with words.
It was just fun, and I remember like that time when I was really taking like rap seriously. I remember I started writing rhymes around about 13 years old, and I remember like writing rhymes in class and stuff. It's the best education I've ever had. It's mad. It's mad how far that's taken us when I look at how badly I did in school.
So when did it start getting into like you thought I can use this medium to get my
I mean, it was just fun, really. Like, so at that time there was like, I guess, like more kind of acts from the UK making stuff, and there was like Britcore was emerging.
Yeah.
And
but you had like Derek B and everybody in the first place.
Well, you did, like, but most of the stuff I was into was like really dark and menacing and stuff, and that was like the thing, you know. So I went down that road. So I guess there wasn't much thought behind it, and I was just like, if I know the names of certain things, like, you know, at the time it was really cool to like sample war films and stuff, and like things like Platoon and Full Metal Jacket and stuff like that. And like use really dark, menacing beats over like really fast break beats and stuff.
Britcore.
So I kind of went down that road and thought, right, just kind of say like really like cool, like weaponry stuff and that, and like and then like compare it to my lyrical firepower, and that's what everyone's doing, right? And so that's the kind of route I went down, and it was fun. But I think in that kind of was where I kind of sharpened my blade, because rapping at that tempo and then thinking about how you would like syncopate the lyrics and like get the cadence right for make it flow like a percussive instrument over like the break.
I think you've got to learn like those. I think it's got to be really fun and not too deep with its message at first, so you can concentrate on flow and technique.
Yeah.
And then afterwards you start getting the messages that you want to put into it, and it's like, how do you apply the messages to that lyricism?
Yeah, that's it.
And make it work. And I can remember a similar thing where it was like those fast, because I remember going to some events and getting like a Brotherhood cassette and Suspect and you know, Blade and all that kind of stuff. Even Two-Tone Committee. Do you remember that Two-Tone Committee? Yeah, man.
Class.
All that stuff, like hearing all that on vinyl.
Glasgow representing it.
And Glasgow, and then just thinking like, how do I put my messages to this? You know what I mean? It's just like it's going to take some, but I think there's I wonder if it's an age thing, that you're just at that age where you're starting to take the news into account. You know, you've seen your parent watch the news and read the newspapers and the media and stuff, and then you start growing up a bit, and then you think, I wonder what your first message was that you started writing about, Ken.
I mean, I couldn't tell you, but I can remember a sense of angst and stuff about the situation and stuff. And I think it's because, like, growing up in Newcastle, like, you know, we were pretty marginalised as a region. We got hit hard by the miners' strike, by poll tax. The Tories just hammered our area.
Thatcher and all that.
So, like, I think that, like, I lived in, like, the aftermath of that. I'm old enough to remember living right in it, but then the aftermath of it, like the 90s was like, it was like a dark uprising, you know. It was like really kind of like coming out of this kind of like shadow, and so there was a lot of like resistance around anyway. So I feel like I kind of became politically aware because actually, let's think about that era right there, 1989, the Berlin Wall came down. 1993. Hang on. 1991. When did apartheid end in South Africa? It was 91, 93, I think. 94. I think it was 94. Yeah, it was 94. Sorry, I'm just checking myself in my head. It's 1994. So apartheid ended in 94. So that era there was a lot of uprising, you know. And hip hop, I guess, teaches you through listening to acts like Public Enemy and KRS-One, and you were politically aware. You were like, these are the things that are going on in the world, and it may seem like they're not directly affecting me, but actually they are affecting me. There's a domino effect that affects everyone. Fast forward years later, and now I guess campaigning for Palestine, it's like we are all Palestinian. Nelson Mandela said, no one is free until we're all free. And, you know, like, so those kind of mentalities, when you look at like where some of the ethos comes from hip hop culture, it is directly influenced by those sort of mentalities. The Black Panther Party having the each one teach one directive in their kind of community drives, which where like the each one teach one phrase comes on in hip hop, if I'm not mistaken. So, you know, all of that's really important. I've forgotten what the point is, what the question was, but yeah.
I forgot we just went off on one about that.
Yeah, we're just rambling. But yeah, it's
we were just saying about like, you know, what age did it start coming into it, like that from the, you know, when you start hearing the news more and
yeah. So I think like as much as it was fun, there was definitely some messages in it. And I think that like when I look at the way that I write now is that I'm always like quite technical with the way that I write.
Yeah.
But even if I'm just writing a brag verse, there'll be a message in there somewhere. Yeah,
I tend to go through stages when I'm writing lyrics. So I tend to do, sometimes I just want to be, like you say, just battle, braggy. Then other times I've got really deep kind of like stuff I want to talk about. Now the difference is when I write braggy battle stuff, it comes to me in parts. But when I've got something to say that's deep and about the world, and you know, it just goes
yeah,
and it writes itself.
Yeah.
It writes itself, you know, and I find that interesting as well. That you know, it does that.
Yeah, I guess it's the most honest expression you have as an MC is the stuff that you kind of feel emotive towards. So then it kind of comes right from within. Like you're asking me questions that I don't know the answers to yet, and I'm reeling off the answers.
And I think with lyricism,
just tap the mic. Sorry,
it's all right. I think with lyricism that also sometimes the best messages are the simplest said can be so impactful, you know. And then you get people like Brother Ali who write stuff that sounds simple, but actually when you look at it, it's so beautifully crafted. Like this, one of his lyrics is I always had this thing where I feel like, and I think a lot of people feel it really, but when you meet someone you can get a sense of them pretty quick, and I get a feel for who they are, if they're an aggy person or if they're a cool person or if they're a sensitive person. And Brother Ali said there's a certain type of glow that emanates off the authentic that a fake could never imitate. And it just sounds like a beautiful sentence, just well said simply, but then you study it.
Yeah, and it is intricate, really.
It's very intricate, you know, it's very well wrought, and so that I think finding that balance as you have with your like activist, you know, material and stuff, you've kept that dance of your lyrics and your flow and technique, but also put them messages in there, and that's where for me your real, you know, impactful stuff sits in that. But then you can also just write a braggy battle.
I can, but it'll always be something of substance in there. I think like I want to. Yeah, I mean I don't know if I want to. I gravitate towards just having some kind of content in there.
I think that's
I'm
maybe
amazing,
where we're
I'm amazing. I'm amazing.
I think that's the difference. Like I if I'm doing like a braggy battle style thing, I'm focused on clever double meanings and skill and flow.
Yeah.
And don't really think about putting a message in that much with that stuff. I save that message for when I've got a track about it and stuff, you know, and stuff like that. But that's very much your style, that it's always in there in some level.
Do you know why? Because a lot of the time you're preaching to the converted, and that's the best way not to kind of get out of that trap, isn't it? Because you'll get people who just want to listen to people bragging, and all of a sudden you're like, say, but don't do that though. What you doing, man? Check yourself. You know what I mean? It's just, oh shit, maybe I should think about that, you know. But like, I guess like people could say that's kind of preaching on a level, but like in some senses, everyone preaches about something that they're passionate, and people should be like, if, you know, there is some things that are definitely right and some things that are definitely wrong, and if you've got it in you to feel like there's a moral standing that you need to kind of put out there, so why not? You know what I mean? Why not?
Let's talk about. Let's have a look at this kind of stuff. You crate digging, and there's a
lovely
wide.
records, mate.
This is something else that defines you as a person. Like one of my favourite things to witness is going to markets with you and trying to watch you tear yourself away from record stalls. That you know there's something there, and you know that maybe you shouldn't spend this money because you'll get in trouble with the wife. But you sometimes just can't help yourself.
Confess,
I love that.
I have to come clean. It's true. Yeah, I mean, I guess I've always collected records because when I got into music, there was no CDs.
Yeah.
There was like, it wasn't CDs, it was vinyl, and CDs came in not long after, but like, I was always like, pah, CDs, pff, don't be daft. Coffee coasters. I'll always collect vinyl, me. And I kept collecting vinyl, even when I hardly produced any vinyl. It was just like, a good friend of mine, Matt Price, after some of the best record shops in Newcastle closed down, Matt Price still ordered records in and he sold them at hip hop nights and that. So he was a good source of vinyl for a good time in Newcastle when he couldn't find much anywhere else. There were places where you could, but like, vinyl was very, very thin on the ground at one point. So I've always collected, and then even when like MP3s and like, when you could like go on LimeWire or whatever and download, I've definitely downloaded stuff like, but I always try and get, if it's something I want, then I want it on vinyl.
Yeah.
So and because I'm a producer, as well as a DJ, I guess I buy records for multiple reasons.
If someone was to play your record collection, would they get an impression of who you are as a person? Do you reckon that would guide them to like, oh, this guy's an activist person who cares about the world? Does your collection reflect that?
It depends where they put their hand in, to be honest.
No, I mean, if they could listen to it all, if it was
I've listened to it all. I mean,
do you think they get
how
a
much
good
time have they got? But like, they would find a definite, very like a wide array of music from all over the place, genre-wise and geographically. Yeah. So, like I'd say that the most of my hip hop is rap. Most of my vinyl is rap. Is it actually?
Yeah, you've got a fair lot of jazz and stuff. And
I mean, this is all. I guess all this here is hip hop. There. And
that one there, that one with the monsters on the front is particularly good.
It's a great album. This like
it's by a crew called Them.
I got it in a charity shop for 50p. It was.
That's my crew, by the way. And then Ken's got one over there, aren't you? You're.
That's me up there. Yeah, Bad Roaches.
Yeah. So we got to the stage in our lives where we ended up on vinyl because hip hop heads and all that, and we carry on making vinyl as well. Yeah,
man. I mean,
I love the Shogun Assassin.
Yeah, Shogun Assassin's classic soundtrack. I've got a lot of good soundtrack stuff. That's this is.
Oh yeah, Bobby Womack. Right,
Bobby Womack. I can't remember what the film's called, but it's across 110th Street, including that like dope instrumental version that all the B-boys love.
So let me ask you. So you've got this music collection that kind of is a big part of who you are, and you've been down with hip hop for a long time now, and you've become this person, and then you got to a point where you were kind of a bit struggling with yourself a little bit and certain character traits, and then all of a sudden you got a diagnosis for autism, and did that kind of...
Yeah, I mean,
could you see how like hip hop and autism had
definitely. Like,
so give me an example.
It twisted me round, flipped me upside down at first, but like, I mean, I'll backtrack a little bit. There was a period of time a few years before that where I was diagnosed with depression and anxiety, and I was on medication for a bit. And I genuinely believe that like that was because I was confused about what was going on with this, like
with your like something was happening in autism, but you didn't know it was
I didn't
autism.
know what it was, and like I was struggling in certain areas and excelling in others, and sometimes I couldn't really tell the difference between the scenarios that much. like I felt very socially awkward at times, but sometimes I would be so outgoing and like bold and brash on the mic, you know. So I found I struggled to understand why that was. I had a very weird kind of perception experience that happened to me on a regular occasion, and it was the sensation of something. It would normally happen in a conversation, like a one-to-one conversation like this, where it felt like the person was very close up but also very far away at the same time, and that's hard to explain, but it's a very strange experience. It's like I'm zooming in on someone from very far away. I can see that they're getting further away, but they seem very close up. So I'd be like, this is strange, but I kind of went through my life. I had it like all my life, and I was thinking, other people must get this. But then I would explain it to people and say, what are you talking about? What do you mean? And I was like, so the more that went on, and then kind of all the confusion and stuff, I kind of like realized that, you know, something was afoot. Got depressed, and then, I guess was helped through my depression just through like friendships and marriage and stuff, and kind of childbirth and you know, and things started to feel a bit more right in my life, so I could address the kind of situation and look at like, so who am I? I was kind of working. I'd worked in community music for a long time, and worked in an organisation then called Sage Gateshead, and I ran a program called Music Spark, and it was for young people with learning disabilities and additional needs. And so I was working with a lot of people who had autism and varied kind of physical and mental disabilities as well. So I kind of started to think, like, there's some things that I'm finding here that are quite similar in terms of like the way people are viewing things, the way people are expressing themselves, the way people are reacting to certain things and that. So that's when I kind of thought, I'm gonna go and
prompted a bit of investigation.
Yeah, I'll investigate it and stuff. And lo and behold, at the age of 45, after going through the tests and stuff, the diagnosis is the wrong word for autism, I feel, because I truly believe that everyone is on the spectrum to a certain extent. So, it's like being diagnosed as human. Like I already knew that.
Yeah. Fair point.
But when that happened, like the most amazing thing, Graham, who was on my friend Graham, who was one of the participants on Music Spark, but then became employed as a support musician on my program. I kind of created a role in the program for people who had learning disabilities, so that they could be a valued member of the organisation and carry out training and music workshop facilitation and delivery. So he became a support worker, and the first thing he said was, "Welcome to the club." So I felt like, oh, that's amazing. It's amazing. You know, and like, so I kind of, and I feel like that really opened up a lot of questions. And I'm not going to lie to you, because like that was like, as much as it was like euphoric in some ways in terms of like everything kind of clicking into place, you also start to think, well, I did like, oh, when that person was really funny with us that time, is it because I was maybe a bit off with them, or was it because I was just being really awkward? And is that why such and such never rings me and stuff, because I'm just like a bit awkward and that, and maybe that's why. And I often think, I still think that now, you know, I think that like my etiquette and my social awareness in terms of how to operate in certain like introductory ways with people, like sometimes I feel like I'm a bit like, hiya, how you doing? Like just a bit too eager and stuff, you know, like maybe. And then sometimes I'm like not, and sometimes I'm not enough, you know, maybe, I don't know, but like.
No, I think you're very,
But that's like, it made me question that though, but like it really also gave me a greater, and this is why I think that like autism is the key, and neurodiversity is the key to understanding human behavior, because it made me think that like, right, so I have all these traits, and like you can't really define like what it is specifically. It's just that I fall into certain categories that they say this is autism, but really they're really all fumbling in the dark anyway, because really like you could look at anyone's traits and say that we all have certain aversions and things and conditions that we all want to have in place in terms of how we learn and go forward and things like that. So like having tolerance towards that in terms of the education system being a total fuck up in terms of being able to facilitate the needs of everyone, like, you know, but we can understand that like it's a necessity that we all have a bit more tolerance and understanding that someone isn't going to learn something or perceive something in exactly the same way as us, and like we have to be a bit more patient with that. And not just and when you go to like autism awareness training, they teach you about that specifically for people with autism, but when I hear that, we're teaching that for everyone. It's not like we are being we are an accessible organization because we're making it more accessible for people with learning disabilities, additional needs. We're making it more accessible for everyone who has this human condition, that on the premise that everyone is slightly different, wired slightly differently, you know what I mean?
So do you think that you can kind of, I know with my son with his ADHD, if he's not interested in something, he's not interested in it, you've no chance. But if he is interested in it, it's like laser focus. Like, is that like a trait of autism? Because it would appear so with your writing. You know what I mean? And I mean that way. It's a compliment. I mean it as a compliment. You know, I truly believe that. I've said this to like people like P and stuff, that I do think you're one of the best lyricists I've heard. I've been a hip hop head for a long time now myself, as you know, and I understand lyricism. I think I'm at a good level with it and stuff.
You are indeed.
But I am often left in awe when I hear your lyricism, because I'm very much into the dance of lyricism. It's the bit that grabs me. So I always say that when I'm writing lyrics, I often think about tap dancing, because tap dancing, you can fit a lot of rhythms in a short space, and all stuff like that, you know. So when I listen to your dance of your lyricism, I'm often like, fuck, like that is crazy. And I compare it to other people out there, and I've said to loads of people, make no mistake about it, don't, you know, like Southerners and that, don't be blinded by his accent, you know, like listen, and you'll hear how good he is. People like Benediction are fans of your style because of, you know, they know not only your messages, but they can hear that you're a very, very good lyricist. So it sounds like hyperfocus to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
If a hyperfocus had a sound, that'd be it.
Yeah. That's I get that, and I think that like definitely during lockdown, I kind of realized that like I had like the hyper focus was hyper focused during that, because it was like I was putting myself, I was giving myself tasks to kind of like write stuff for, like, I don't know, it would be like, right, here's something that's happening, I'll write something about it. Here's someone's birthday, I'll write something about it. Here's a student that I'm working with, I'll do something for them. And I was just kind of putting stuff out. I did something for with John Z D's Breaking Convention. They put on a competition called Next Day Delivery, which I did with a friend of mine called Rob Justice. And this was the moment that I realized, actually, like, I'm pretty good at writing like stuff on a topic and I can turn it around really quick. We had 24 hours to make a track and a video, and I remember like we had the concept for the track and everything, and we started shooting the video before I had the lyrics, but I was writing lyrics on my phone as we were kind of walking through the streets of Newcastle, catching shots. Cleverly, it was lockdown at the time, so I wore a mask while I was rhyming, so I could have been saying anything, but like I was writing the bars as I went. Then I got home, I only had about 8 bars written. I got home and had to kind of write, you know, I think there's 3 verses on the track and the hook, and had to produce the beat and had to like record it, and then had to send it to Rob, and then he had to get the footage in line with it, and then like we're sending it backwards and forth. And we'd spent 8 to 10 hours of the time of the 24 hours kind of doing that, and obviously we needed some sleep as well, so I think we got everything else done in another 8 to 10 hours, you know. And I kind of came away thinking that, and if you look at the video online, I don't know what it's called actually, what's it called again? It's cool. It's just breaking convention, next day delivery, and it'll say Ken Masters on it. And I think like we came away with a piece of work. I mean, I'm really proud of it. I know Rob is as well. Like that, we came away with something that was really special. And I have to shout out John Z D for inspiring us to do that and involving us. And that. And like, I think that John Z D's a few times in my life been a really good source of inspiration.
I shouted him out on my last video. Yeah. My last, I can't remember if it was the last podcast I did.
I think I remember, I think I saw you shouting John Z D out.
Yeah, he's an important guy.
Yeah, he is a very important guy. Like, he's doing great things, and he always has done great things, and he's also amazingly fun to cipher with as well. Like, so.
Oh god, yeah. He's a character, isn't he?
It's good.
He's got that charisma to go with. Yeah. So yeah, you've got this. You've got a few different worlds clad in there. In a whirlwind of, energy that equates to you. It's very interesting as an outsider. Your character, it's fascinated me for a while, but I find that way, a lot of the crew that we hang with, like this very unique characters and stuff.
Yeah.
And all from different stories. It's like Daichi and stuff who we was hanging with last night, and his background, and is he like Japanese, his family and stuff, and he's got like his outlook on the world, and so everybody's always interesting to me to be with, like even Damon last night, Damon's background, like a world champion jiu-jitsu guy with, from a tough area and stuff. It's,
and everyone's on the spectrum, isn't there? So it's an interesting thing. I think it's I think there is a realization that that we are all wired differently, but we all somehow kind of work together.
One of the maddest things that occurred to me with hip hop was I can always remember like being like seeing graph lettering and hearing raps and seeing the dancing and stuff, and then never realizing they were part of the same culture.
Right.
But there was something about them that obviously. I don't know if I'd seen that they were part of the culture, and it hadn't clicked that and then finding out, I was like, oh man, these are the same thing. Like it was a weird moment,
See, because for me it was presented as the package. So it
wasn't for me.
I came across it as like it was almost like the 8 arms of Buddha doing everything at once, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, it wasn't that for me, because Burnley was a b-boy fortress. Burnley was b-boying and graph mainly. There was a couple of DJs and stuff and the odd rapper, but there was a lot of breakers and a lot of graph artists.
Yeah.
So I saw a lot of that. That's why I become a b-boy first and foremost,
Yeah.
If you here's a question, because I always think for myself, like if I could go back to the beginning and I had a choice of what element or what aspect, like I'd definitely go back to b-boying as my first choice. Like I love rapping. I've made a good few albums. I put a lot of time into it. I put a lot of time into producing because I'm old and my body won't take breaking anymore. But if I could go back, I'd be a b-boy first and foremost. What would your first choice be? Would it be DJing, rapping, producing? Breaking?
That's a hard question because, like, sitting as I am now.
That's mad because for me it's not an hard question, but for you it is.
Well, I'm thinking it in terms of like DJs are the coolest. Like without a doubt, DJs are the coolest of us.
No way, B-boys are well cooler than DJs.
Nah, the B-boys with B-boys it's like they can do loads.
They need the DJ. They need the DJ.
Exactly, man. That's why, because DJs don't have to there's not as much physical exertion, and actually a DJ can just be a presence in the room and drop a beat, and that's essentially all they can do.
I mean, I agree on that level.
So then, like, to have that kind of influence, power, is I guess is really cool. Like, but I can't take away from the fact that like I get the most enjoyment with playing with words, and I just feel like I don't need a practice room. I don't need a big space. So B-boys need that. I don't need a set of turntables. I don't need like records. I don't need equipment.
That's the advantage of
DJs need that. I don't even need a wall and cans.
Yeah.
All I need is something to write. I just need my brain, and sometimes I don't even need to write it down. You know.
I think the common thing with all of them is like the part of hip hop the hip hop elements for me, which is the most the thing that grabs me, is the puzzle.
Yeah, we've
It's
talked about this
always
a lot.
about it's always the puzzle. Like, I love performing lyrics, I love people hearing my beats, I love all that, but the enjoyment of that creative process to create them verses and create them beats, and even with the dancing to create that movement and make it work, that's much more enjoyable to me than the performance. And I love the performance, so that tells you how much I love the puzzle.
Yeah.
You know, so
And I think that's a draw for any artist outside of hip hop or anything, like in any kind of art form. When you think about the road that you're traveling on, you're kind of getting to a point where, like, oh, that wasn't it. Oh, hang on, change it a little bit slightly. Oh no, that's not it. And then you like nailed it. You know what I mean? And you get it. And then once you've got that down, and then people hear that, they don't know that. Maybe they don't all know about the puzzle, but they subconsciously like going, you nailed the puzzle. That's why we're all like, yes.
Yeah.
That bit of the tune where it goes into here, it's like you've, like, you know what I mean?
I think it's so integral to good mental health. Well, I don't think it, I know it is. You know, it's just that, like, we can easily get caught up in the problems of the future and overthink and stuff. And that is, you know, I say it to my fiancée Jodie all the time, that your brain, all it wants is a puzzle. It's meant to think, and you have a choice of what it can think about. But if you don't give it something positive to work on, it'll often revert to worry, because worry is the infinite puzzle, because you cannot solve the future. So your brain loves that, because your brain thinks it can. You know, that's your fucking ego, innit? But so if you nourish it with, like, good creativity across anything, not just hip hop, across anything that's creative and positive, you're gonna settle your soul for good periods of time.
That's it, man. That's it.
You know, and I think
when Seek says worry, he means worry. Just for the people out there, they're probably used to your podcast.
So you're
by
a
now.
Geordie. We're one of the strongest accents in the UK.
Well, we say worry properly, though, don't we?
Well, how
Worry.
do you know? You're further away from.
Well, what's wrong with my worry? Your worry.
Yeah.
Worry.
You're looking kind of hot in that snorkel jacket.
You spell worry with an E. So I was just clarifying. There's probably some people watching this who haven't watched your podcast before and said, "What does he mean by worry?"
There's probably some people watching this who haven't
understood
understood a thing what you said.
No, that's fair enough.
And me either. They just watching me and you going, what the fuck are they
Couple of
talking
northern
about?
bastards. I'm never listening to their music.
To them it just sounds like blah, blah, blah. It's like, what the fuck are they saying? Yeah. And then pointing at records every now and then.
Yeah.
I think the hip hop heads. I think they're
Oh,
talking.
we'll talk about records again if you want. Like that's
Yeah, I know you like your records. Yeah.
I do.
Go on then.
Let me tell you about this. So this is a great version of California Dreamin'. Okay.
California Dreamin'.
It's not. What am I doing?
That's not it. That's not it.
It's in the record next to it. There we go. The great. If anyone gets a chance to pick this up and listen to it, it's White Rabbit by George Benson. There's some great players on there. Herbie Hancock and Hubert Lords is on here. Earl Clue and Billy Cobham are on here as well. But the version of California Dreamin' on here, it's absolutely insane.
It's enough to make your grandma weep.
It is. But I've got a really good California Dreamin' story. So like,
we'll finish on a story.
Right. So this is a digging story. It's a good one. So I stumbled across a version of California Dreamin' on like a charity shop record. I'm not going to say what it is because people have to like find it themselves. I feel like I work so hard to find this. Like, I will say what kind of record it's on and stuff. So it's a charity shop record, and I had it like I used to play it out all the time. And there was one time I played it out, and I got home, and the record wasn't in the sleeve. So I had the sleeve, but not the record. And for years after that, I couldn't find the record, and I was gutted about it. I was like, man, this is like the best version. I remember being at Humber Street Sesh one year when Nick from Second to None was there and chatting to him about it. Said there's a version of California Dreamin' and it's absolutely killer. I used to play it all the time. I've lost it. I don't know where. I can't find it. I've looked for it online because I was always looking for. I couldn't remember what the title. It was just hits. It was USA Hits. So I was like, USA Hits. That's what it was called. And he didn't know about it. And I was like, oh man, I need to find it. So then like years later, I was kind of like looking online and I kind of came across a Reader's Digest box set on Discogs that had a similar cover. It wasn't the same cover, and it didn't say Hits from USA. It said something else. It said Hits something else, but it was a box set. So then I looked through the other titles that were inside, and lo and behold, that record was in there. It was in like a 10 record box set. So that's why I couldn't find it, because it wasn't being sold as a single record. So I ordered the box set. It's there somewhere. I should have got it out, but it's like big thick thing, and I got it out, and lo and behold, there it was. Playing it for the first time in ages. I was like, yes, I've got it back. And then like a few weeks later, maybe months later, I was going through my records, and in a random record sleeve.
And you found the original?
I found the original one. So I had 2 copies of it then.
Wicked.
So yeah, that's the Digging story. But it's a great version on a Reader's Digest box set. That's as much as I'm giving away.
I didn't realise that Daryl from Second to None, he's a massive collector, crate digger.
Oh, really?
Into his 45s and his funk. Yeah, he's got a lot of stuff. I've seen his videos online, and he's he's banging.
Yeah. Well, I went shopping with. Actually, it was Daryl and Nick. Actually, I went shopping with in Hull.
Yeah, wicked.
Yeah.
The crate. I love that crate digging's a craft and a skill and, and a knowledge as well.
You gain so much. Like mate, I mean, this podcast could be 3 hours long if I talk too much. But there's certain things you pick up from people. Like, it was actually Daryl who put me onto Gong, which I wouldn't really be searching in that area. Gong's like a real kind of like prog rocky sort of band, but not very synthy, more like guitars. But amazing breaks on that. He put me onto them. There's a guy in Helsinki that I go shopping, Red Hill Records in Helsinki. He put me onto the Russian label Melodia, and he actually gave me the code. There's a special code you look for on the record label. It's for like because obviously everything's
very nerdy. I love it.
It's all written in Cyrillic, So like unless you can read Cyrillic, you don't really know what instruments are on it and stuff like that. So like you can, there's a certain code that you look for that means it's contemporary music, which means it isn't. They have like a few categories, but it's like either classical, folk, or contemporary. And if it's contemporary, it's going to be like jazz or rock and stuff, and there's going to be something meaty on there. So like that's I'm not going to tell people what the code is.
No, don't tell the code.
No.
It's a crew secret. Yeah. I don't know it either, but I'll get it out of him one day. Ken, I love you so much, bro. I'm so proud to be crew with you. I really am. And
likewise, man. Likewise.
All my crew. So thank you for doing that. It's been very interesting.
Like and subscribe.
Yeah, like and subscribe. Yeah. And share as well. And yeah, we hope you've enjoyed that as well. If you've got any comments, any questions, please leave them in the comment section of the video. Yeah.
Ding ding, hit the bell.
Peace and love.